We are pleased now to be joined by the presumptive GOP candidate for president of the United States, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. Governor Romney, welcome to NBC12. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Let's first talk about your tax plan, which is something that the Obama administration and the Obama campaign have attacked on a pretty regular basis. Now, you've talked about cutting corporate taxes and 20% tax cut on the marginal tax rates. But you've also said that this tax plan is going to be paid for. The Obama administration has used this as an opportunity to attack your plan because they say that you're going to have to eliminate deductions in order to pay for that. But you haven't specifically talked about what deductions might be eliminated. Could you give us some specific idea of how this tax plan will be paid for?
Well, yes, and that is that deductions and exemptions for high-income people will be limited. And the purpose for that, of course, is to make sure that we keep the code as progressive as it is now. I'm not going to reduce the share of taxes paid by the highest income individuals in our country. They'll still pay the largest share as they do today. And one thing's critical. I will not increase taxes on middle-class Americans. Middle-class Americans are going to see a tax reduction, in part because I'm going to eliminate all taxes on interest, dividends, and capital gains for middle-income Americans.
And now let's talk about Medicare. That's, of course, been a very heated topic over the past couple of days on the campaign trail. You've criticized the Obama administration because of the way that they're going to use Medicare to help pay for the Affordable Care Act. But your plan talks about a degree of privatization for Medicare, and that often scares seniors. How is this something that seniors shouldn't be scared about when you talk about leveraging the current Medicare program against a private insurance plan?
Well, actually, my plan makes no change whatsoever for seniors. None. Zero. Zip. Anyone 55 years of age and older sees no change whatsoever to Medicare. So there's no change in my plan. The president's plan, by the way, is to cut Medicare for current seniors by $716 billion. And the Medicare trustees just came out with a report, said 4 million seniors will lose their Medicare Advantage plan, the one they've chosen. It also says that the actuary of Medicare says that some 15% of hospitals and nursing homes are going to stop taking Medicare patients, given the president's plans. So the president's plan for Medicare has a dramatic effect on seniors. My plan has no change whatsoever for seniors.
But doesn't
my plan, however, deals with the coming generations and provides a Medicare Advantage-like opportunity for coming generations.
But the Obama plan fills some of those gaps with the Affordable Care Act, which you've talked about getting rid of. How do you write those two differences where the Affordable Care Act's provided new opportunities for seniors that currently aren't available, for instance, filling the prescription donut hole?
To cut $716 billion from Medicare and then to put back about 1/6 of that is not solving a problem. The right course is not to cut Medicare by $716 billion and drop 4 million people from the Medicare plan called Medicare Advantage that they've chosen. That's a huge impact on today's seniors, and it's something you're going to find seniors are going to reject, I think, in large numbers.
Now, among your cost-saving proposals on your website that I read last night is a plan to reduce the federal workforce by 10%. Virginia is a state filled with federal workers and largely dependent on the federal government as part of its economy. Won't a plan like that hurt the Virginia economy?
No, actually what you're going to find is we will shrink the size of the federal workforce through attrition. We have far more workers in the federal government that are necessary in a highly productive entity. But also, one thing that's key to Virginia is I'm not going to cut the military by $1 trillion. The president's plan is to cut military spending in this country by $1 trillion. The Secretary of Defense said that would be devastating to our national security capabilities. You're going to see a lot of jobs lost in our military establishment, and that's going to have a big impact on Virginia, across Virginia. So you want jobs at Virginia? Don't vote for a president who's going to cut military by $1 trillion.
And speaking of the military cuts that are on the table, the sequestration issue, that was a problem created by both your party and the Democratic Party. How could you work with the Democrats in Congress, which may have at least a partial control of that House, in order to solve this problem?
Well, first of all, of course, the president's budget cuts the military by almost $500 billion. That's his problem. Then the sequestration is another $500 billion on top of that. And the Republicans have said, let's restore that sequestration number for the military. The president said, no, he'll veto that. So I'm afraid this is on his shoulders, not my party's. But frankly, we have to have a president who's able to work across the aisle. And this president has demonstrated he can't do that. I was actually governor in a state where my legislature was 87% Democrat. Everything I did had to be done with the collaboration of the Democratic legislature. And I was able to cut taxes 19 times along with them, balance the budget all 4 years I was in office, help put in place some education reforms. Our education system in Massachusetts ranks #1 in the nation. And as you know, we put in place a health care plan which has about 98 or 99% of our citizens insured. Again, I worked with Democrats across the aisle to get the job done, and the president just hasn't been able to do that.
My last question for you, Governor Romney. If you have talked a lot about the differences that there'll be with a Romney administration and an Obama administration, but give me one specific example about how your administration would be different than a George W. Bush administration.
Well, this is a very different time than the time that President Bush was president of the United States. My plan for economic recovery and creating jobs for the middle class and more take-home pay is quite different than anything that's ever been seen in this country before. #1, I'm going to take dramatic advantage of our energy resources: coal, oil, natural gas. Natural gas has now become massively abundant given new technology. #2, we're going to fix our schools and our training programs and make them the best in the world. #3, we're going to open up trade with Latin America and crack down on China. China has been cheating. That's something President Bush didn't do. President Obama certainly hasn't either. #4, I'm going to get the budget balanced. Republicans and Democrats in the past have not taken the action necessary to do that. I will. And finally, I'm going to champion small business. Small business is where our jobs come from, where the job growth comes from. I've got a plan to help small business. This is a very different agenda, a 5-point plan, very different than President Bush, remarkably different than President Obama. And putting in place the plan I've described will create 12 million new jobs in this country over 4 years. That's the kind of course I think America needs.
All right, former Governor Mitt Romney, the presumptive GOP nominee for President of the United States. Sir, we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you. Good to be with you.